Hello, beautiful people, and welcome back to another edition of the Monie Podcast, a space for real conversations, faith-filled reflections, and stories that remind us that we are never alone. Coming to you with my first virtual episode today, but we had to do it. Today's episode is tender, it's honest, and it's deeply needed. I'm joined by Judine Gordon. She's an author, educator, special needs teacher, autism survivor, and a woman whose story of motherhood did not follow the timeline she imagined, but unfolded exactly as it needed to. Judine is the author of The Cradle That Waits, a powerful reflection on infertility, miscarriage, faith, and trust in God through seasons of unanswered prayers. In this conversation today, we're going to talk about the silent grief of miscarriages, the pressure placed on women and couples, adoption, pregnancy later in life, and what it means to keep believing when your body, your heart, and your faith are being tested. Judine's journey didn't end in loss. Today, she's a mother of 3, including twins. But her story reminds us that even when the cradle waits, God is still working. Please help me welcome my guest, Judine Gordon. Hey, Judine.
Hello, Simone. Thank you so much for such a wonderful introduction. I'm so excited to be here with you today.
Yes, thank you for taking the time. You know, your story is much needed, and I've been trying to get you for some time. I just didn't know exactly how to, pivot it because it's a tender subject, and especially with our age group, me and you, we go way back.
Yeah. Way back.
So I was like, I really want to touch on that because I have friends, I've met women who are going through it. And it's just something that I really wanted to let them know that there's hope, you're not alone, and just have you share your experience as well. So we're going to get into it. Let's get into the book. What motivated you to write The Cradle That Waits?
Actually, I started writing The Cradle That Waits while we were struggling with infertility and going through miscarriages. And it actually just started as a journal. I realized that there was no safe space to really talk about this. Nobody really understood. And on top of it, a lot of times the thoughts in my head didn't sound as godly as I feel like they should have, because I was angry. I was really angry. I was really emotional. So a lot of times, like, my thought process was just not great. And I needed a space to vent, and I needed a space to ask questions. The way that we grew up in the church, we were taught all the time, don't question God, don't ask questions. And I guess we'll dig into that a little bit later. Some of the beliefs that we grew up with that really make us feel not only entitled to have answered prayers, but to feel like motherhood is just naturally something we should aspire to.
Exactly.
Right. And that if you don't achieve that, you are failing. And I really felt like I was failing, and my body was failing me, and God was failing me. So my journal became my safe space. And while I was writing this, and I started to meet, not even a lot, maybe I think it was like 1 or 2 other woman going through the similar situation, and I realized somebody might need to read this one day, right? And whether it ends in us having children or not, or adopting or whatever, somebody else somewhere is going through this, and somebody is going to need to read something that is real, that is honest, that is raw, and they could say, oh good, somebody else understands.
Yes, exactly. And it's timely because in today's day and age, it is something that women struggle with. And I'm glad you wrote the book because a lot of women can relate to it. Like when you wrote the book, did you think of you writing it for women, couples, God, or yourself?
I think all of those. I think for anybody who needed the message, right? It's not even just for people who are struggling with infertility, but if you know somebody who is, it's also a good read for you because it will give you insight into what your loved one is going through and maybe help you not to ask some ridiculous questions or say some insensitive things, because sometimes people just don't know that what they're saying is hurtful, right? and I do believe I write about this in the book. Somebody actually asked me, so when are you still planning to have kids?
Yes.
While I was going through a miscarriage. And I'm telling you, I wanted to square up.
Yeah.
I was like, and my answer wasn't kind. I wasn't kind. I was, oh, you read that part. I see. It was, I was like, but I just felt like spelling it out for her. I was like, actually, I'm bleeding it out right now.
Yeah.
You want to talk about it some more? And
Yeah.
her face was like, oh my gosh. But she probably has never asked that question since then. And if she ever sees this, I apologize. I was not in a good headspace, but I really feel like we need to stop asking this question.
Listen.
Right? So this book also helps those people who know somebody who just wants to know what the struggle is like and how they can help somebody who's going through this.
There's something about naming pain that like begins with healing. Infertility is still whispered about. Why do you think that is? Like, people still talk about infertility.
I don't know if it's that people still talk about it. I think it's that people are starting to talk about it. Right. And I think the reason is, and I thought about this a little bit actually last night as I prepared for this conversation, because I asked myself the same question. Are we still thinking about it, or are we starting to think about it? I think infertility has always existed, but the technology that we have to kind of solve the problem hasn't always been around.
That's true.
So in the past, it was that people just dealt with it silently and said they were waiting on God, and that was all they could do, right? But now, if a couple tries, and our infertility specialist told us that if you're young and you're within a certain age bracket, that after trying for about a year unsuccessfully, you're infertile, it's better to come in for some help, right? And it's like, oh, okay. Is that the case? Because I mean, we were there for 3 years. They did not help us because they couldn't fix what was wrong. Right. And, that's the thing, is that like, it's just that now we talk about it more because it's diagnosed more. The help is there. So people could be vocal and say, you know what, it's been a year, let's go get the help. Right. And then people are going through multiple rounds of IVF, which didn't happen in the past. So I do believe there's more of a platform to discuss it now, whereas before, I just don't think it was discussed as much.
Yeah, because as young women in our young age that we're in, I feel the pressure is on more for us to, when you're gonna have kids. I get that asked a lot, like, you're not gonna try and have some kids, you don't want any kids, and sometimes people don't know what's happening in the background. Like, well, kind of I'm trying, or you can't. And how do you think we can help to normalize that conversation where it doesn't come across almost like a jab? Sometimes I find when I get asked that question, I'm just like, I don't like it. You know what I mean? I'm just like, it's a little bit tender, sensitive, like, you don't want any little kids and you don't want to have, how do you think we can normalize having that conversation where it doesn't really hit that spot?
I think, honestly, instead of answering the question, I would question the question.
Okay.
I like when people say, do you want to have kids, or don't you want to have kids, or aren't you going to have kids, or any of those questions, start saying, why do you think that's a question that's okay to ask? And you will see how fast somebody stops and they're just like, and they immediately start thinking, is it a question that's okay to ask?
That's true.
And they start thinking about all the reasons why it may not be appropriate to ask. And you will see how quickly they will say, you know what, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You know what, you're right, I shouldn't have. But you're stopping it right there. And you're not just stopping it for yourself, you're stopping it for any other woman that they come across. And I think that it's a bold answer for sure. I know it's kind of a gutsy answer, but I think it's so important in order to change this game. We need to start calling people out.
It is. I'm gonna try that one. I'm serious, honestly. And sometimes it comes at me and I'm just like, what did infertility teach you about your body and your faith?
Oh, well, those are two loaded questions. First of all, I think that it really taught me and I think I mentioned this in the book, is that like we're really, and especially as we're growing up, we're taught about sex a lot, but we're really taught in the church, like, if you even look at a man,
You see it.
you know you're on the path, right? Like you're on the path. And
Yeah.
then you see other girls that might get pregnant in their teens in the church, and you see how they're treated, and you see some of the things, and it's just like, wow, you really, really, really think it could happen so easily.
Exactly.
And then you see a fertility doctor and you realize there was so much science behind this.
Yes, yes.
And the science may not be on your side. It's not as easy as they make it sound, right? And there are so many things about our body that we just don't realize. For example, our fertility doctor explained one time that many women in their teens get infections that have no symptoms, and this causes scar tissue we don't know about.
Okay.
And this could cause infertility because things won't implant where they're supposed to. And you don't know this until you're going through it.
Wow.
So there are a lot of things that, like, I was like, so
Yeah.
how would I have known about that?
Yes,
It's just like,
yeah.
unfortunately, you can't.
And
Right. For me, there was, in the end, and we didn't realize until after I had my twins, that I did have a lot of scar tissue, and that was what was going on. Right. So we didn't even realize it or learn that during the struggle. Right. But I really learned that your body is not always going to do what you want it to do.
you wanted to.
Right. And you can't make it do what you want it to do. And that's a hard thing,
It
because
is.
I mean, if we're really honest, our body is the only thing we have full autonomy over for our whole lives. And even for some of us who, for example, have been through like different kinds of abuse, we didn't even have that autonomy, right? And then it really just feels like such a failure. You really feel like, I'm letting me down and I don't know how to fix it. And it's just, it really feels like a hopeless situation. I can only imagine people who are living with, cancer or other things, where it's like, wow, why is my body doing this? Right. And then that ties into the spiritual piece. And, I almost sometimes feel like I should rewrite this book, because it's been 10 years since I've written it. And so much more has come to light since then.
Yes, yes.
Right. And one thing that I have come to realize is that we have some spiritual arrogance. We just think that if we pray, it's going to happen, right? And we're really being led by a lot of leaders in the church who are quoting certain scriptures, and we're taking out one verse where two or more are gathered, or, like, we're taking out one or two verses and we're running with it. And there is a whole entire Bible to look at. And there are other people out there who have prayed certain prayers, and they haven't always been answered the way we expected to be. And one thing that we really need to realize is that Christ did not come to save us from hardship. He came to save us from sin. And when there are things in our heart that are impure, that is what he's trying to work out in us, because he knows that having that child is not going to get you to eternity, but that sin will prevent you from entering these gates. And that's what I need to deal with.
Yes.
Right? The Bible says that our life is but a vapor, right? And Christ does not see death the same way that we do, right? For us, it's a loss. For him, we're coming back exactly how we're supposed to be.
Yes,
right?
yes.
And so for him, it's just like, you can't sacrifice salvation for this vapor here, right? And if there's something in our lives that is going to stop us from getting there, he loves us enough to say no.
Yes. I would feel like saying amen after that, because you touched on something that just kind of opens the segue for me reading this passage of your book on page 44. You said, but we did try God. We tried him first, and first is in caps. I argued. And again, I heard it. Try God one more time. So I reached over and took Stephen's hand. We got up and made our way to the front, just as our pastor began his prayer. As we made our way back to our seats afterwards, for the first time since this whole ordeal had begun, I felt certain that God was going to answer her prayers. I'm not sure exactly what changed in my heart, but I felt different. I felt at peace. I didn't know when our baby would arrive, but I knew that it would. Tell me a little bit about that, because when I read that, I felt a little bit of anger
Mhm.
when you was writing that passage there.
I remember this actually very, very vividly. And I remember my heart posture leading up to that day, right? And what I had come to realize is that if something or not getting something is going to cause you to lose your faith in God, it has already replaced him.
Ah.
It has already become your God. And when I realized that I was at a place where I was willing to sacrifice eternity, I was literally willing to end up in hell for a child I didn't even have. And that kind of stopped me at dead in my tracks. And I was like, is that really worth it?
It. Yes.
Like,
Yes.
you'd rather live this life and have a child and end up in hell? Like, this child isn't even here. And you're like,
That's it.
and I was like,
Puts
this
it.
is what God is showing me.
Yes.
This
Yes.
is what he's showing me about my heart. Right. And I knew that there were other avenues to motherhood. Right. And we had even considered adoption at that time. Right. And it's still something that I very much am passionate about. But God just confirmed in my heart at that time that he was like, that's not the route for you. I will provide for you, but I just need you to trust me. And I had no choice but to trust him, because the fertility doctor didn't know what was wrong. We didn't know what was wrong. We were really at God's mercy, but we had to put it on the altar before him and say, you just have to take care of this. Because my hands, and you read the book, my hands were all over, up and in and out of trying to control. There was no God in that at all. I was controlling everything. And another thing that I came to realize through this is that there is not a single pregnancy on this planet, not a single child that's born by accident, not one. When you truly understand the science behind how pregnancy happens, you realize this is a miracle.
Yes.
And not only that, but when God creates any person, Simone, he's creating them for his glory and for a purpose that he's ordained. A child is not just going to come because I want it.
Yeah.
A child is going to come in their preordained time to fulfill their destiny given by God.
Yes.
So I can't control the time they come. It's up to him, because they're here for him. Right? The child is not here for me. The child is here for God.
God, that's true. It's ordained. It is timely. You are meant to be here. I like how you said that a child is not born by accident. I have a few friends that said, I got pregnant, it was an accident, didn't plan on it. You know what I mean? And it's just like, yeah. So just hearing you say that, it puts it into perspective. How do you confront like comfort couples who feel broken and because conceiving didn't come easy for them?
This is a tough one. This is the toughest question. I've been asked this before, and it's always a very hard one to answer, because I mean, for us, the struggle went on for 3 years.
Yeah.
There are some couples, it's gone on for decades. For some couples, it never happened for them, right? That have never gotten pregnant, right? And I really think that, if I'm being very honest, and this is a hard answer, we need to open our minds to the fact that sometimes God says no.
No, that's true.
Sometimes it is just not his will for you to have children, right? And this is a hard case. I know there are people out there that will disagree with me, but if you truly believe that your steps are ordered by God, there's actually no other answer, right? And we refer to God as our Father all the time. I don't know what good and healthy father you know that gives their child just everything they want. I think we really need to learn what it truly means to be submitted to God and to say, what is your plan for my life?
What is your will?
Right? Because there are a lot of people that are out of line with God because they're waiting for kids, and God is saying, I actually have a completely different plan for you, friends.
Yeah.
Right? And it may not look like what you thought it looked like. It's a hard one. It is a hard one. I would tell them, you need to go back into your prayer closet. You need to make sure, what is it God has for you, right? I think one way that we can prevent things like this from happening is to change our language with the next generation, right? And this is something that is very dear to my heart because I have 2 girls, right? We grew up hearing, when you have kids, when you get married, don't do this with your kids.
You
From
don't
the
need
time we're young, it's literally just an expectation.
instilled in us. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to grow up and have kids. That's what I'm
Yes.
doing.
Yes.
Right. And I'm very careful when I speak to my daughters. I always say, if you choose to get married, if you choose to have kids, they need to understand that you should choose and you should pray and ask God and understand what his will is for you. This is not just I'm going to go through life and expect this to happen, because we're setting kids up, right? We're setting our young women up to feel like failures and to doubt God when it's all of a sudden you're not meeting this expectation that's been set by society and was never set by God.
That's true. That's true. And I've personally been there, because growing up, that's what I was told, like, when you have kids, you'll know, or when you get married. And you kind of then feel a little bit of failure when it's not happening. You kind of feel like, okay, when's that going to happen? Time's kind of going tick, 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 tick. And it's true. I think changing the language and how we do speak to our daughters and our younger generation will allow them not to be set up and feel like there's a failure on. So absolutely. I love that. Miscarriage is something that I've seen in a few of my friends, and I work in the field, in the healthcare field, and it's not it's very emotional. It's very emotional. It's very emotional. You experienced miscarriage. What was the hardest part emotionally for you that you can tap into for us?
The worst thing, this is an easy answer, is not being able to protect my child.
Yeah.
As a mom, you will do anything to protect your kids, right? And when you're pregnant and they're inside of you and they're dying and you can do nothing.
Yeah.
It's just, I can't even describe the feeling of being so out of control and really feeling like I can't help you, I can't save you, and really feeling like you failed your child, like your body failed your child. It is one of the worst feelings, and I don't know. I don't even know how even to put it into any more words, right? And I've seen other moms, like I work in special needs resourcing, and I see a lot of moms who have children who are ill, right? And and just watching them want to fix everything, want to either, bring the sickness on myself, and or whatever it is, and they can't.
They can't.
Right? It is the hardest thing a mom could go through.
It's rough. It is rough.
And it's lonely, I think, sorry, I also wanted to mention, because it's for the fathers, it's a little bit different, because when the wife gets pregnant, for them, it's kind of a concept.
Yes.
Right? They know the baby's coming. I'm not saying that they don't feel the loss and they don't feel it hard, but for a woman, even before we miss our period, we start to feel signs. Our body changes. We have a bond with that child that is so instantaneous.
Exactly.
Right? And we feel that loss. Even if it's early, we do feel it because our breasts are not tender anymore and we're not feeling nauseous anymore. We can actually feel the baby dying with the loss of the symptoms. And it's weird because, I don't know any pregnant person that loves morning sickness and stuff, but feeling that go away and knowing what it means is like, we are really feeling it in real time. We're experiencing that death in real time. And I don't think it's something that a man could really understand. And it's a very lonely experience.
Yeah, I like that you touch on it from the male perspective as well, because sometimes we just see them just in the picture. What are their emotions?
Yeah.
What are they feeling? How are they, comforting themselves through this time? So I really like that you highlight the male side of it as well. Your grief that you went through quite a few. How did you grieve losses that the world never got to meet?
We just had to do things privately. So if it meant like whenever I got pregnant, I would go out and I would either buy a onesie or some kind of sign of hope. And if it didn't work, then I would just either find a place to bury it, or like I actually have a memory box with some of the stuff I got. I think it was my third miscarriage. I ended up going out and getting a onesie with lions all over it. And I just thought it was so cute. And I said that I'm going to save this for whenever I have a baby, right? And when I got pregnant, I would take it out and I would look at it. And then when I lost it, I would put it away. And then eventually I got to see Alex wearing it, and I have a picture of him in it. But we just really had to find different ways to mourn. But I will say that in the trying to conceive frenzy, I wasn't even really considering the grief as much, because as soon as we lost it, it was just like, okay, when can we try again?
Yeah.
Right. So we didn't even take the time. And I think that was kind of survival, because I was like, I don't even want to sit here and this.
Yeah.
Right. Like I would have my moment, I would cry. I also talk in the book about how I started taking a lot of sleeping pills or pills to sleep or drinking or whatever, because I just didn't want to give myself a minute to sit and feel it. Because if I felt it, I felt like it would crush me. And I couldn't feel it.
So in that moment, like, what do you say to women who feel pressured to move on quickly? You know, like how do you do it, or what would you say to them? It's not something that you can really move on.
Yeah, you can't. And we kept moving on so quickly because I was just focused on like, we need to have the kid, we need to have the baby, right? And I would say to moms, that urgency is real. That sense of urgency is real, because you almost want to pretend the loss didn't happen. You just want to feel pregnant again, right? In hindsight, sometimes I do wish I had slowed down and taken the time to mourn the child that we just lost. But I'm also not even sure if that would have been the correct route, because I think that mourning so many losses might have done me in, right? So I'm not sure if there's a right answer. I think that just waiting the appropriate amount of time and doing something that you can to remember the child will maybe help you in the grieving process. I don't know. In hindsight, I think I could guess at what I probably should have done. I'm not sure if those are the right answers, if it would have been right to sit and to really grieve each child, or if it really was valid to just want to move on as quickly as we could and try again, because I just had to be pregnant. I think the only thing that I do wish I had done sooner is realizing how much it was affecting my relationship with my husband and my relationship with God.
Man, this is a deep topic we're talking about. Again, we're speaking to Judine Gordon. Her book is The Cradle That Waits. And this is a very tender subject. So I do hope that if you're listening, it is something that, you know, maybe you can relate to. If not, please do share this episode with a friend. You know, there's grief that doesn't come with like funerals, and that's often the heaviest. You know, you touched on that a little bit there, where you just mentioned you were just trying to move on, and just kind of try not to feel that pain. Did your faith ever feel shaken? I mean, your faith, did it ever feel shaken?
It did. And I felt, we also had nobody to really encourage us, right? Because the thing with miscarriage is that it's a silent grief. There's nobody to bury, and people are like, oh, it happened so early. Okay, well, you can try again. Or at least you got pregnant, right? Because it's true, a lot of women can't even get pregnant, right? And so people could be so invalidating. There was a time that I was driving home with my mother-in-law, and I remember her asking me, like, I don't know what she just said. Like, I don't know what's wrong with you, why your babies just died. Like, right. And I will say, to be fair, I don't think that she meant to hurt me in any way. My mother-in-law, her biggest dream was to be a nana. She has 5 kids. She loves her kids. She also went through pregnancy loss. She had incompetent cervix, which it makes it a later loss, which means she actually gave birth to the babies, right? And they passed away. So I think for her to see her son go through this with his wife was painful for her as well. So I just wanted to say that as a disclaimer. I don't think she meant to hurt us. I think for her, she was genuinely wondering, like what's going on? Like, it's happening so early. Like, what's happening? It's not, they're not even surviving, right? For her, she knew what was wrong. And the problem wasn't the baby. The problem was her cervix. For me, it was just like, what is going on? Right. And the fertility doctors couldn't tell us. So I really think she was just kind of wondering out loud. At the time, I was just like literally sitting there bleeding. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm so mortified. Right.
Yeah. You wanted
right?
But
this just shows the ripple effect that infertility has, because the people who are closest to you, they're hurt by it as well.
Yes.
Right. But they are also hurt by their expectancy that we're going to move on and have kids. Right. And as parents, we need to realize that, like, we have to stop putting that expectancy on others, because we're creating our own disappointment as well. That's just a little sidebar. But it did shake my faith, because it was just so silent.
Yeah.
Right. And even though people kept saying, just pray, and trust God. And I was like, my guy, we grew up in the church. Like, what do you think we've been doing here this whole time? Right. And it's like, it's such an obvious answer. Right. And it's not that they're wrong. Let's be real. It's not that they're wrong. It really is the right answer. But when people give you that answer because they have nothing else to say, it really comes across as just being very cold. Because it's like, I don't know what to say to you. I don't understand what you're going through. Just pray. And it's like, I've been doing that. Right. And nobody's going to look at you and tell you the hard, cold truth that really seek God and see if this is his path for you. Right. Like in the book, I talk about Isaac and Ishmael, and how Abraham lost faith in God during their infertility. Right. And look what happened. Ishmael came along. Right. And if we had chosen to adopt, that would have been our Ishmael. That would have been our, I'm not waiting on you. And this does not mean that adoption is wrong. It means that for us, that's not the path God had. And we had to wait for our Isaac. We had to. And people need to realize, because for some couples, it's the opposite. For some couples, the child you're waiting on to bear could be your Ishmael. Maybe God is saying, I have somebody else for you, and your path to motherhood is going to look different. And I need you to submit to me, because I'm going to provide, but I have a child for you. And we don't know what that purpose is. And sometimes it's God saying, it may not be a child. Maybe he has a ministry, maybe he has something else. But as I said, it's the hard, cold truth that we had to really submit ourselves to. Right before I had that moment at the altar where God gave me that spirit of peace, I really had to resign myself to the fact that this may not be God's path for me. And what else is inside of me that he's trying to birth? Is it something else? Is it something else? Right?
It's interesting, because I know a lot of people who's been down this path, and they eventually just lose faith. They just give up. They're like, no, God would not allow us to go through this. That this is not God. What kind of God is this? I've seen it.
Yeah.
And your faith is just so strong. I just want to know, like, how do you stay connected to God when prayers feel unanswered? Because I've seen it, and I just see people just walk away and give up. And I'm just like, wow. But you explained it in a way where you just gave in all. You just gave all to God and just say, your answer, your time, your will. How do you do that? How do you stay connected to God when prayers just feel unanswered? This is hard.
Think about this one for a second. I think that it really depends on the person. And I know there are some people that hear my testimony, or I'll say our testimony, my husband and I, and they are probably, and I know I would have been thinking the same thing. It's easy for you to say you had your 3. It's easy for you to say it's only been 3 years. For us, it's been 20. It's easy for you to say, right? But the thing is this, infertility is not the only thing I've struggled with my entire life either, right? Or in my life. I won't say my entire life, but in my life, there has been a number of other things, right? I came from a very abusive household. I came from, like, there has been so much else, right?
Yes.
That I have dealt with in my life. And I had to remind myself that through it all, God has proven himself
That's good.
faithful,
Amen.
right?
Yeah.
So if we're just taking infertility in its own little pod and looking at it and saying, how did you remain strong through that? Right. Well, I'm going to look at every other area of my life and be like, well, there have been other things that I could have easily lost my faith through, but I could have also lost my life through. Right. And I still made it. Right. But it's a very personal journey, and only you could decide for yourself. For anybody, they can only decide for themselves how much they're willing to sacrifice for what they want. Are you willing to say that if this is not God's will for me, how okay am I with that?
Yeah.
Right. And it's a hard thing. It really is a hard thing. I don't ever want to sugarcoat it and make it seem like it's easy, because what do you do when this has not only been the expectancy that's been placed on you, right? But it's also something you've desired for yourself. And truly you want kids, and you're seeing people with kids, and you know all the things you want to do with your kids. And
yes,
it's so much, right?
Yes.
To say that, how do you stop and say, this is not going to happen?
Yeah.
It's a hard one, right?
Yeah.
And it is true that there are going to be some people out there, and are some people out there right now that are in that place where they have to say, okay, God, okay.
Okay. Yeah.
What else, right? And the Bible does say that we pick up our cross and we follow him, and whatever is nailed to that cross, whatever heartbreak, whatever heartache, whatever failure, whatever anything it is,
Yes.
that's what you're picking up, and that's what you're taking along. But I will say, if kids are not the thing that is going to be for you, God will never leave you high and dry without anything.
No.
Right. And again, like, I kind of want to tie it back a little bit to the language that we use with our children, right? Because if the language we're using is, if you choose to have kids, if you choose to have a career, if you choose to get married, you're automatically setting them up to realize that, oh, so there's other stuff.
Yes.
There's other stuff. It's not just parenthood. It's not just being a wife. There's other stuff. Right. And there are, especially in this day and age, right? I could understand a little bit back in the day when women, you were kind of relying on that provider, but women nowadays, like, we're killing it out here. Okay. So like, our girls could really grow up and run this world, right? And they need to know that, because if they do get married and they are trying, it cannot feel like the ultimate failure, right? They have to be able to say, okay, well then there's something else. There's something else, right? And looking back, and like, if I really, really truly understood that, I feel like we would have spent more time traveling. We would have spent more time doing other things instead of this madness that we were doing. Right. But I do believe God allowed us to go through that, because I think that there was something that we needed to develop here. Right. And really understanding as a child of God that there is no accidental birth also means, and this is going to be a hard one, there's no accidental infertility. There is only God saying, I'm going to make the people, and it's going to happen in the right time. And it's not going to be at the expense of
in the right time. You know, it's interesting that you touch on there's other things. And I think I've come to that realization in my personal walk with God. I don't have any kids of my own. You know, my brothers, they have kids. I'm an aunt. But I had to have my own talk with God and just be like, so it's not going to happen, eh? You know what I mean? You have other little things for me. And
yeah,
I honestly feel like he does. There's so many more things that I've been, you know, doors have opened for me that had I had children, I don't think I'd be able to pursue certain avenues. And I look at it like, well, maybe this is what God has in store for me. You know, I have a charity, and now have a podcast. I'm working. And I think I had to get quiet and just listen to God and just realize maybe this isn't in your story. It's not in your picture. And I had to be okay with that. You know, I had to be okay with that. And I find a lot of people find it hard because even my mom, she's just like, you can adopt. Maybe you don't have to have kids of your own, but you can adopt. I'm just like, it's something that maybe I'll explore. But, there are couples adopting, women getting pregnant in their 40s and 50s. I've seen this. How do we expand our understanding of motherhood? You see those ages, when you think of that, you think of risky pregnancy, delicate,
Mhm.
how do we expand our understanding of motherhood when you see women conceiving in those age gaps?
I think we just, again, need just to look at our faith in God and understand that if you get pregnant, I mean, again, look at Abraham and Sarah. She
Yes.
was not young. And this is why she left, because she was just like, it sounded like lunacy to her. Right. And it's going to sound like lunacy to medical professionals, 100%.
Yeah.
Right. And I know it's hard to hear the word geriatric pregnancy and you really feel like you want to say some things
Yeah.
because like, why say those words? I mean, can't you just say a pregnant woman? Like, why you gotta throw that out?
True.
But, we have to change the way that we look at what God is able to do.
Mhm.
And that's the truth. Right. And we don't know. We really don't know. And I do charge women to pray about what motherhood might look like for them if it is God's will, because I mean, adoption is a great option. I do know one woman she's a single woman. She has adopted 2 little girls, and these are little girls that have severe medical needs, but she's momming them and she's taken them here. And I was watching one of them the other day at a center that I visited, and I'm just looking at this little girl and I was like, look at this child. Look at this child that was born. She was born with a cleft palate. And when she was adopted, like her mom, like she went through surgery and whatnot. And I was like, who would have thought when this little girl was born in a slum in India and literally thrown away like garbage, that she would end up here in Canada, being loved and cherished.
Wow.
Right? Like, who would have thought? And we don't know what this little girl's purpose is. Right? Like, only God knows what she'll do. Right. And, even if it's not motherhood, right? Like, and let's look at like your story, right? Where, you don't have kids, but the amount of people that you're giving a voice to, we just don't know how many lives you've probably saved. And we'll probably never even know.
Yeah.
Right. And you can't even compare to that. You can't even compare to that. Like, if you ever paint yourself a picture, Simone, I will tell you, paint yourself a picture of you walking the streets of heaven and somebody coming up to you and saying, I'm here because of you. And you've never even seen that person before. And what a joy.
Yeah.
What a joy. And to know that you might even, I don't know when we're in heaven, if we're able to look over, back over our lives and think that, you know what, maybe I didn't have that child I wanted, but wow.
Yes.
I did not show up at these gates with empty hands. I did not show up with my 2 long arms. I did not show up. And I say that when we don't tell people about God, when we do not proclaim his goodness, we are literally showing up with blood on our hands.
Yes.
Right. And I saw this phrase once that said, how much do you have to hate somebody to watch them walk into hell and not say anything? And I was like,
yeah,
that took me a minute.
Yes.
That really called me out a little bit. Right. But honestly, Simone, like, you will not be showing up with blood on your hands. You will not be showing up with 2 empty hands. You are taking people with you. And what an amazing joy. Like, what an amazing story to have. Right. And it doesn't take away how hard it is that, you still might desire that child. We don't want to at all minimize that.
Yes.
Right. And this is again why it's important to focus on this cannot be the only thing that comes out of your life is motherhood. Right. Because it's not worth it to show up at the gates of heaven. You are a mother, but your hands are empty. Not worth it.
That's true. Oh, wow. I felt that one. Thank you for saying that to me, because I never really looked at it that way before. Looking back now, how do you see God's timing differently in your story? Looking back now, you kind of think, all right. It had to navigate that way. It had to go that way. How do you look at God's timing differently?
I do, because I realize 100% that my children are here because of him. And that's it. And I'm constantly reminded of this every time there's a moment with them where they're growing, or a teaching moment with them, that it's literally my charge to, and my husband's as well, to grow these children up to follow God. Right. And to instill in them the word of God, and reminding myself that, like, I'm not here to control their destiny.
Yes.
I am here to help them as they fulfill the destiny that God has for them, and that he birthed them with a purpose.
Yes.
Right. And I think this is something a lot of parents actually do forget. Right. And this is very popular. I've seen it a lot in this day and age. And we're like, we really control the most of our kids' lives, right? And it's not that we're not supposed to, control to an aspect, but a lot of times we forget to stop and say, God, what's your will for this kiddo? Right? Like, and really listening to the voice of the Holy Spirit while you're raising your kids, to make sure that you are propelling them into the destiny that he has birthed them for.
Yes.
Right. And that's a very important thing to remember. It has shaped the way that I'm raising them. And it also has shaped the way that I trust how things play out in my life. Right. And this could be whether it be career or, whatever it is. Right. I'm learning to realize that even when we don't see it, God is working in the background. He is working in the background in ways that we can't see, and he will show up when the time is right.
Yes.
Right. And my husband and I remind each other of this sometimes. We're just like, remember when, and look at them now.
Yes.
Right. There was one year when we were in the middle of our trying and pregnancy loss and infertility season, and it was Christmas. And we sat down and we were thinking, we just started talking about, like, it was kind of a hopeful conversation. We started to talk about what are some traditions we want to do with our kids when we have them.
Yes. Nice.
Right. And it was a conversation of faith. Right. And one thing that we said we wanted to do was getting matching PJs every Christmas. And I'm sure you might have seen the picture on Facebook. And taking pictures with them. Right. And it is so surreal when my kids know I order in August. I am legit about Christmas. Anyone who knows me knows my whole year just revolves around this one season. But around August, they're like, Mama, did you order the pajamas? Mama, what color are my this year? Mama, did they come? And it's weird to actually hear them ask for it and know it. And one day we were sitting down, not knowing how and when we would have these kids, and saying, this is what we want to do.
Yes.
And now they're here saying, where is it? And every year we have that picture turned into an ornament, and it goes onto our tree, and our tree is filled with all of our ornaments throughout the years. And it's not just a tradition for me. It's a reminder every year that God was faithful. God was faithful, because every time I put that ornament on the tree, I remember that conversation where we sat and we're like, this is one thing that we want to do. Right. And like, we just talked about different things, and we're doing most of them now, not all of them. Some of them we kind of forgot about, but this is one of them that we remembered. And every time I put the ornament on the tree, I was like, wow, I remember when we just talked about this. Wow. And here they are.
I love that. It's a reminder. Really, really love that. I want to touch a little bit on autism, advocacy, and motherhood. For you, just a little bit. You're also an autism survivor.
I'm autistic, yes.
And a special needs educator. How has that shaped the way you parent with your own children?
Well, I think the thing is, because I was diagnosed later in my life, as I started to work with children who are on the spectrum and do a lot of research and, just like reading a lot of articles, I think there are some things that I just thought were just me and did not realize that this is not just you, this is autism. Right. And as I started to read some articles, I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Right. So I went through the process, and I have to remind myself, like, and today is a very good example. I had to have my husband, we didn't really have an argument, but I was trying to explain something to him about why I didn't want to hang out with a particular person, because to me, this person is just fake. And he's just like, okay, I know you guys are not besties, but like, at least she's polite. And I was just like, no, man, she's fake. Right. And like, we were going back and forth, and I was just like, I don't understand how you
How you do
like somebody's fake if they're fake.
Yeah.
And he was just like we just were not seeing eye to eye. Right. And we got off the phone call, and I had to remind myself that something about autistic people is people say that autism means that you are socially awkward. We're actually not necessarily socially awkward. We're actually more socially aware, which means we pick up on all of the nonverbal cues that are even humanly possible. We are seeing all of the things. This means that surface conversation is very difficult for us.
Yes.
Right. And if we're picking up on the fact that you actually don't like one of us for some reason, we understand that for neurotypical people, we don't like everybody we talk to, right? But we're still going to be polite, because it's just like, I don't like you, but I'm not going to cuss you off. I'm going to be polite. For us, this is a hard one to swallow, because it's like, but then why am I talking to you?
Yes.
Right. We also have a very strong sense of justice. Right. So when we're in social situations and somebody is being fake, and it's just like, I need everyone to know how fake you are. Right. It's a hard thing for us. And this is why it's like, I need Steven to see that they're fake. I need you to understand. Right. And he's just like,
I don't see it. Yeah.
For him, it's just like, because they're okay. Like, neurotypical people are okay with surface conversations. I can't handle it.
You can't.
Right. And so this is another way that like I really have to censor how I parent, because, for example, when my children have disputes or something happens in school, it is a very difficult thing for me to swallow that my child might be in the wrong. And with my strong sense of justice and just understanding that, like, oh my gosh, these kids are learning. One benefit, though, I will say, is that being high functioning autistic and also being labeled as gifted, my main thing is research. I need to know all of the things that there could be to know. Right. And so whenever my children are struggling with anything, whether it be with mental health or anything like that, I am going to do all of the research, and I will continue doing the research as my child grows, and I will adjust accordingly, and I will advocate for my child. Right. Like, for example, my son has ADHD. I know that a lot of people hear ADHD and it automatically assume behavior.
Yes.
Right. Because it's very much associated with behavior. However, and when people hear that I'm autistic, they're like, you're not autistic, especially, people in the West Indian circle. No, but you. And I was like, okay. Yeah. I actually never said anything was wrong with me. I never said those words. I said I was autistic.
Exactly.
And if you think that means there's something wrong with me, that's a you problem. For me, it's not. Right. But I had to have a conversation a couple of years ago at Alex's school where somebody was just like, oh, he has ADHD. So are there behavior challenges? And I stopped them immediately. And I said, listen, I'm going to explain to you exactly what this is scientifically. And I could see their faces like, what? Right. And I was just like, I know science is in session. But the thing is this, right? And I'll break this down for you in like 30 seconds because I know time and stuff. But like right now, Simone, you sitting there, your brain is taking in over 1 million pieces of information, right? You're taking in information about what's around you in your environment, the color of everything, the texture of everything, where everything is. Your brain knows how much to disregard as unimportant. Okay. Right. So you're really only going to consciously think about what your brain says, this is important information, and it will disregard the rest. The brain of an autistic person doesn't make that distinction.
Okay.
Everything is important. And the lower functioning you are, the more information is coming in. And this is why autistic people, you'll see them stimming and stuff. And that's because they're trying to create a sensorial input to overpower everything else that's happening around them. Right. And that's what that is. Right. And so because I'm higher functioning, I could mask. Right. It doesn't mean I'm not feeling overwhelmed when there's a lot of sensory input. I have found ways to mask. Right. However, if I'm in an environment or in a situation that's overwhelming for too long, I will become very overwhelmed, or like I'll go into the washroom and I'll have to stand there for 10 minutes and deep breathe because I'm just like, this is a lot, right? I also have my own stimming that people don't realize because they don't even realize they see stimming as like one thing, right? Now, the brain of a person with ADHD, they are taking in more information than a neurotypical brain. Not as much as autistic, but more than a neurotypical, which means they think very fast.
Okay.
And a lot of times their actions and their thought process are not on the same track.
Yes.
So it's kind of like their actions are kind of like a stone that's pulling them downhill, and their brain might be somewhere else.
Oh,
right? And so this is why they're very impulsive. They also have a very strong sense of justice. So they'll melt down, and they're also very socially aware. Right. And because they're socially aware, but they're still young, their maturity is not always where their brain is. So this means like you could look at them and you're just like say, hey, Alex, can you? And he thinks he knows what you're about to say. So he's off and he's doing it. And then you're like, hey, that's not what I said to do. And he's like, what do you mean? You told me that. And like their brain is just moving faster. Right. And what people don't realize is that people with ADHD are actually extremely intelligent. Extremely. And most kids with ADHD are actually very gifted. They just need to hone it a little bit differently, right?
Yes.
And you need to be taught a little bit differently. Alex can do a Rubik's Cube in like 30 seconds.
Oh, wow.
Okay. He sits in the basement and he builds things like, and out of nothing. I don't even like, he'll come to me and he'll be like, Mama, I need a glue gun. And I'm like, okay. And I go down and like, there's this whole paper sculpture and he's made it out of paper, but it's hard. It's like rock solid. And I was like, how did you do this? Right. But like he's taping things together so it's hard, and then he's putting it together. Like he just needs to use his hands and he needs to be busy. This is why though the screens make it good for children with ADHD, because everything's moving so fast, but it doesn't help them. Right. So things like video games, drum playing is also very good with kids for kids with ADHD because their brain and their hands are moving fast together and they like that.
Yes.
Right. So I think that, and I know this is a long-winded answer, but I think that my autism has really helped with raising Alex because of the amount of information and research that I just need to have as a person with autism, right? But it's helped me raise him because I didn't know all of these things about ADHD until I had him. And then I was like, I need to know what this is. And when I realized it's not a death sentence, and I've learned and I've taught him to use it as a superpower, and he genuinely sees it as a superpower. And he does. And he'll just be like, and he knows how to advocate for himself. I've taught him in words that he can understand what ADHD is. And he'll come and say to me, Mama, my brain feels fast. It feels busy. What can I do? Like he knows, right? Last year, one time he was talking too much in class. And his teacher said to him, you know, I'm going to move you because you just seem to be a little bit chatty and busy right now. And he looks at her and he goes, okay, but if you move me over there, is my ADHD coming with me? And she was like, oh, good point. What do you need? And he was able to say, like, I think that like I need to take a walk and then maybe I need some fidgets. Like he knows what he needs.
That's good.
Right?
And he's young. Your son is young.
Yeah.
Wow.
He's 11. Yeah.
That's good for him to know the signs and tap into that. He's like an advocate for himself. I really
He is. And we really need to start advocating for people with these kinds of needs, because I don't even like the term special needs. It's not a disability. It's actually an extra ability. And it's so misunderstood, especially in West Indian culture, but that's a whole other topic. But like it's very misunderstood, right? And we need to start teaching these kids they have a superpower. This is how you use it.
Yes. You know, you highlighted your kids in a little synopsis there. You know, you have 3 children.
Yeah.
And twins. You know, what did that feel like for you when it finally happened and you came full circle from waiting to witnessing?
Yeah. I think that was the solid moment where I knew God is truly a God of so many wonders. I think I did write about this in the book, that when I was younger, I was obsessed with the book Sweet Valley Twins.
Yeah.
I used to always pretend that I had a boy and identical twin girls. And I even wrote a journal entry. I think I was like 6 or 7 that said, or maybe older, but I don't know, that said, when I grow up, I want to have a boy and identical twin girls like Sweet Valley twins.
Yes.
How I ended up with that is literally only God.
You spoke
It's
that.
only God.
Yeah, you spoke
And
it.
this was him. I feel like this was God's message saying to me that you got to trust me.
All right.
Right. And this is why even now, as I said, I still go back to that moment to remind myself in times when I'm doubting or in times when I'm unsure that no, God is going to come through. And he has, in fact, continued to come through just as big as he did with the kids in ways that have me flabbergasted. And it doesn't mean that we don't have rough times where we're truly just like, God, what are you doing? But we look at our kids and we remember again, no, he came through. He came through. They are the reason that I have the faith that I do. They really.
I love that. You know, sometimes the miracle doesn't come how we imagine, but it's greater than we prayed. And you're a testimony to that. Very, 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 very true. I love that for you. You have 3 kids. Amazing. Yeah. And your story, I hope it touches someone, because I personally know quite a few individuals who are going through this right now. And you're a testimony to, if you just believe and continue to hold on, hands of God, he will come through for you as well. I want to get into a little rapid reflection with you. Just a few little questions I'll ask you, and you just think of an answer that fits it appropriately.
Okay.
Rapid. A prayer you whispered but never said out loud.
I think just, God, I know. God just showed me that I'm important to somebody.
Oh, I've done that one too. Yes. A season you survived that people don't know about, you know, a lot of times behind the scenes.
My childhood, my whole entire childhood until 20, all of it.
Your childhood can be a rough one. One lie infertility made you believe, and the truth God replaced it with.
As children of God, we deserve anything we pray for. The truth is, we deserve what God has ordained for us.
That one's going to have to be highlighted, because
it's a hard one. It was a hard truth.
Yeah. That's a definitely hard one. What motherhood taught you about God?
That their walk is not my walk, and I can't control their walk, and I just need to teach them to hear his voice.
And a word for the woman who's still waiting.
Pray and ask God what his answer is. Pray and ask God.
Love that. Your book is really, really good. Where can people get the book right now? Is it available in bookstores, or is it personal?
It's available on Amazon. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. It's available on Amazon, or they can even, like, if you send me, like, inbox me on like DM me on Facebook or whatever, then I can actually just mail it to you, but it's also available on Amazon.
Love it. Really get your copy. I read this book and I was just like, I folded a few pages, made my highlights. It's a really good book. And books are really good when it's someone who's lived it. You know, they're speaking from their perspective in hopes of encouraging someone else to get through. I really like those self-help books. It's my story. I'm letting you know what I went through in hopes that you can take something from this. So really, really love that. This brings us to a segment of our show called Good Things Are Coming, where I like to leave our listeners and viewers with a positive affirmation to help them get through the week. So I'm going to do a little Good Things Are Coming, and then Judine is going to do a little Good Things Are Coming. So good things are coming because even when the waiting feels unbearable, even when the cradle is empty, even when the tears are private, God has not forgotten you. Your story's not over. Your womb, your heart, and your faith, they are not failures. All right, let's have you leave a little Good Things Are Coming for our listeners and viewers to help them get through the week.
I would say good things are coming because God's dreams for me are bigger than my dreams for me.
Ah, two snaps. Love that. Love that. Love that. Love that. That. Judine, honestly, thank you so much for trusting us with your story, your honesty, and your faith, and your vulnerability. I know this topic is very tender, very delicate, and I'm really glad that you were open to share the depths of how deep it is, with our listeners and our viewers. And to every woman listening who's grieving silently, questioning God, or feeling behind, this episode was definitely for you. If the conversation touched you, please share it with someone who needs hope. Subscribe to the Monie Podcast. You want to let people know how they can reach you? Do you have a website or another way they can contact you?
I guess not really. I think most of my work lately has been with special needs resourcing, to be honest, and life has just taken me through a whirlwind with that. But I am on social media. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, and every once in a while people do DM me and they ask questions or they ask prayers or, whatnot. And I'm always open to speak with anybody that way.
That's nice. Love that. Love that. So subscribe to the Monie Podcast. You see the link below. Until next time, be gentle with yourself and remember, good things are always coming.
Amen. Thank you so much, Simone.
Thank you.